Alrighty, let's get to the point here. You just bought yourself an RCP2 for streaming and didn't realize that you have no idea what you're doing to set it up. You searched all over YouTube for tutorials on how to do so and got met with a mix of heavily accented tech bros spouting ignorant nonsense, overly edited intros for tutorials on launch day firmware settings, and proprietary tutorials that sound like Todd Howard explaining Skyrim physics. It's been well over 2 years since this mixer dropped, and yet there's still not a single straightforward setup structure out there, and I'm sick of it. So I have what you want, and it's in simple English. You don't know what you want, which is why you bought this mixer after finally realizing that the shelf life of your TC Helicon paperweight is much more finite than you thought. What do you want? You want a concise tutorial under 5-ish minutes that does 3 things. Divides audio sources of your choice into separate channels like the Go XLR. Define what audio sources that get routed into those mixer channels, and have those channels directly split into OBS for your VOD tracks. And no, this tutorial doesn't include how to set up your microphone with the best EQ settings. If you bought this thing and don't even know how to mix, what the hell are you doing here? Get a snowball. First things first, materials you need. We're keeping this simple. Get a damn USB-C mail to mail. That's it. Seriously. You don't need this, or whatever the fuck this is. Every overly complex solution out there has this 5D chess method of getting every single audio source split into its own channel before downmixing. You do not need this. You're delusional if you ever think yourself or your editor will ever need that many channels and are making yourself work harder. If you do feel that you somehow need a 5th audio channel for a lavalier or want a 2PC stream audio setup, there are other tutorials out there to help you do this. Against all odds, this is the only tried and true way to get access to a 4th overall channel and 3rd virtual channel for the mixer. God knows if we'll ever get a proper firmware update that addresses this. Alright, plug all your shit in and you're done. We're going to keep this as simple as possible and just clone the overall layout of the Go XLR, and by the time we're done, we'll have 4 overall channels and a 5th for smart pads. Here's the layout of our end result. Pause to familiarize yourself as needed. We've got ground to cover. Now for the first of 3 routing setups. Let's make our mixer channels. Get your mic set up and move on to the RCP2 main channel. This is where everything takes a radical left turn to whatever out-of-date tutorials you've seen so far. We're going to ignore the labels of every channel that is offered and stick to them as to what they are: simple audio sources. To be as painfully simple as possible, I'll put a visual on screen to explain what each channel is receiving and what each channel is sending as we set it up. Pause is needed to further see the why that goes into each channel's routing. RCP2 main is going to be sending our desktop, game, OBS, Discord, whatever, audio to our broadcasting software of choice. It receives audio from Discord and everything on your computer into this channel and mixes it down. Don't worry, you can still adjust your Discord audio on its own. This is just where it consolidates it. RCP2 chat is going to be sending our microphone information and our voice effects from our smart pads to Discord and OBS. It receives our microphone output since that is natively hosted and controlled in its own channel and our smart pads info. This is how you can adjust your incoming Discord volume. Do not ask why the mixer treats Discord and chat input and output as the same name, but treats their signals as separate. I didn't make this mess of hardware, I just piloted. Again, understanding the difference between how your channel consolidates all this information and which channels actually control the volume levels itself is key here. RCP2 secondary is going to be sending our web browser of choice and our media player of choice into OBS. It receives input from these based off of the next step where we'll decide what programs send their audio signals to where. Alright, stop touching your mixer now. You'll break it if I leave you two alone long enough. Right-click your volume control on your desktop and navigate to Sound Settings, App Volume and Device Preferences, and then take a moment to digest the list. This only shows active sound sources, so obviously we'll need to play around with stuff as it becomes relevant. This is where we decide what gets fed into each of these mixer channels to be controlled. Since we're choosing to split things away from our default audio source, we're going to choose our browser, Spotify, Windows Media Player, whatever you fucking want, and set the output to RCP2 secondary. Music and media channel achieved. Now what about Discord, you ask? Shut up, I say. I'm getting to it. We're not doing that here. Discord makes this routing app dependent, so we're going to be hopping into those settings now. Navigate to voice and video and set both your input and output to RCP2 chat. Like I said earlier, this is the only place I've found that actually shows you it's differentiating the signals even though they're under the same name. It's really nebulous why Rode couldn't have been more scrutinous with its device labeling, but whatever. Your mic slider now controls your input and your chat slider now controls Discord's audio output into your headphones and OBS. Alright, hands off the mixer forever until you set your levels later. The worst part's over. Let's move to OBS itself. I'm assuming you aren't some fucking Melvin who uses slobs or XSplit in current year, so I'm not even going to address those as options. This is how we're actually splitting our audio signals for VOD recordings to have editable channels in post. Our mixer will only mix everything down into a master track until we tell these channels to stay separated in OBS. Crack open OBS and jump into settings. Navigate to audio, then global audio devices. This is the area where your channels are controlled, and here's the part where things get confusing as hell for no reason. It's not the instructions itself that are wonky, it's just the way OBS accepts this as the only correct way to do it. To elaborate, desktop audio 1 and 2 are going to be entirely ignored. Yes, ignored. For whatever reason, if we don't set up our slider channels in our mic and auxiliary audio, the sliders cannot influence the audio levels in OBS. I have no earthly idea why this is, but it's simple to fix at the very least. Enter in each slider output into each channel and they will show up in OBS's audio mixer. Go ahead and rename these to whatever is easiest for you to recognize, but what I have on screen is what I've come to use and see as simplest. Homestretch kids, if you needed several Subway Surfers breaks up until now to make it this far, put the iPad away one last time and let's round this out. Back in OBS settings, we're going to output. These are your tracks that your locally hosted file will separate your audio into to edit with later. You need as many of these as channels we've made so far. If you haven't kept up or can't count, that's 4. Number 1 will be our composite/VOD track for Twitch, track 2 is only our mic, track 3 is our consolidated desktop audio, and track 4 is our music and media audio. And there you have it. You never have to touch settings again or look at another tutorial for this absolute beautiful mess of a mixer. Happy streaming, you chumps. By the way, anyone want to buy a Go XLR?